without actually, forcing us to damage our toys. Crash into Skeletor. Too far! This is upsetting to me. It's like the loss of characters such as Ironhide, Prowl, Ratchet, and Brawn. Here's the thing, I totally get it. In the 80s, if our toys didn't come with some sort of battle damage, we were going to damage them anyway. But when they did come with battle damage, it was awesome. You could have Darth Vader riding a speeder bike just like he didn't do in the movie and then crash into Skeletor, and that was pretty awesome. And you had Skeletor and He-Man with a really cool chest that don't work anymore because they're 40 years old, but basically they had these cool chests where one hit. Oh, look, that actually kind of works. You hit him once, it's going to go twice, I bet. But you hit him once, one scar. You hit him twice, 2 scars. Look at that. That's really awesome. And I'm actually surprised this guy works. Look at that. It actually kind of locks into place. Good job, He-Man. So that was a lot of fun. Like, we needed this in our toys in the 80s. We were Gen X kids, and we just destroyed everything. Firecrackers were a big part of our play back in the day, so I totally understand that. So that was awesome. That's why they provided us with toys that would do that sort of thing, so you couldn't. Here, Skeletor. Get on Dusty Battle Cat there, and you sit back there.
Until we
that would provide us sort of scratch that itch without actually, forcing us to damage our toys ourselves, because we absolutely would. And I know there are plenty of you who had their G.I. Joes completely obliterate your sister's Barbie dream house. Don't say you didn't. So that was fine. That was fun. That was a good time. Let's get all this stuff out of the way. But there's one thing to me that is just too far, and that's this. Studio Series Buzzworthy Bumblebee, Ironhide and Prowl from Transformers the movie 1986. Buzzworthy Bumblebee edition because Target, I guess. And then you have the Studio Series Brawn and Ratchet from the Transformers 1986 movie. This to me, and we're going to have to back out here, is just simply one step too far. It's clear to me now that Hasbro hates its Gen X fans because too far. This is upsetting to me that they would do this to us. Everyone, if you were... I got to calm down for a minute. But let's just go back and talk about the 1986 Transformers movie. The Transformers, the movie, was released in cinemas August 8, 1986. It was an emotional and devastating experience for many young fans, primarily due to its shocking moments and the intense sense of loss it delivered. Up until that point, Transformers was a light-hearted, action-packed cartoon where the Autobots and Decepticons were locked in an ongoing battle and the good guys often triumphed. The movie, however, changed that formula in a dramatic, unexpected way. One of the most heart-wrenching and surprising aspects of the film was the death of Optimus Prime, the heroic leader of the Autobots. For many young fans, Prime represented the ideal leader, strong, noble, and wise, and his death was portrayed as brutal and unrelenting. Prime's final battle with Megatron left him mortally wounded, and his passing, both in the movie and in a theater, left a deep emotional impact. The film didn't sugarcoat it either. The Autobots mourned his loss, and the idea of a toy line and show moving on without him seemed unfathomable. The movie included additional tragic deaths like the loss of characters such as Ironhide, Prowl, Ratchet, and Brawn, who were also beloved by fans. Their deaths were particularly jarring because they happened so early in the film. Many kids probably hadn't even taken their first sip of Coke or eaten their first handful of popcorn when Megatron and other Decepticons burst onto the Autobot shuttle and mercilessly murdered everyone on board. The sense of finality was overwhelming, especially because there was no promise of a happy ending. The film was darker, more violent, and more intense than the show ever was. For young fans like myself, the shock of seeing these characters die on screen, particularly in a film that was aimed at children, was a jarring experience. It forced us to reckon with loss, which, for many of us, was our first exposure to such an emotional theme in the context of a children's show. The sense of grief was compounded by the fact that the film was marketed to kids, leading them to believe that the Autobots universe they loved was permanently altered. And many characters that we had played with in our rooms and our imaginations for the last 2 years were gone, completely, dead. And so now, all these years later, they give us these guys. just to remind us of the trauma, the tragedy, the heartbreak we felt all those many years ago. And obviously this is a bit tongue-in-cheek. In a way, it's kind of fun because, again, we were 80s kids. We were actually more impressed with the cussing, I think, in the 1986 movie than we were with the deaths, to a certain extent, because we thought that was super cool. But we were also sad to see, depending on your age, some of our favorite toys just get obliterated literally in the first few minutes of the film. But they have enshrined that now with these Studio Series toys that are obviously, no, these are not new. I think these might even be a couple years old. I'll put the dates they actually came out. But this video isn't about, oh, look at me, I got the brand new thing. Hasbro sent it to me directly and I want to show it off to you. No, this is just whiny Gen X guy talking about these toys and talking about the trauma that this, I'm going to say that word a lot, but this scene put on us, and how hilarious actually it is that they have given us these toys. Look at these faces. This is absolutely insane. This is just whatever. But let's get these guys out of the box. In typical Studio Series fashion, you receive this nice little backdrop made out of cardboard that you, in theory, could use to display these guys. I don't know anyone who ultimately actually uses these. They're kind of flimsy. But they do put them at the deck of the shuttle here where they, ultimately met their demise. So that's kind of fun. And just to add to the disrespect, their accessories and things are just, provided to you wrapped up in this tissue, presumably that you can use to wipe your tears away when you're, reenacting this devastating scene. But this just feels absurd that this is how it comes. But, yeah, so my personal experience with the movie in '86 was I didn't go see it first. I was hanging out in front of my house because I was a Gen X kid and it was the '80s and it was the daytime and I was not supposed to be inside the house. So I was outside my house, probably sitting on my bike, not actually riding it, just sitting on it, when some of my friends came by who had just the night before seen the movie. And the first thing they said was, they said bad words, they cussed, dude, it was cool. But then they started naming off all the characters who died in the film, and I was just, like, absolutely devastated. Be real careful, by the way, when you get all accessories out of here, because, again, this is ridiculous. I don't know, there might be something else hidden in here, right? There we go. A lot of, like, typical what you've gotten recently, these nice little explosions and flames and things that you can, I suppose, stick in these guys to really just reenact the devastation, the kill shots. I don't know, cool, I guess. The figures themselves, I have to say, are really sturdy. They're really nice. They're solid. I'm sure they are repaints, redecos, right, of possibly their Siege characters, I suppose. Their Siege builds. I'm not sure. I'll put the accurate iteration on the screen here, but they're nice. They're solid figures. They're really cool. I'm going to transform them here in a second and look at their alt modes. But yeah, it just cracks me up that their faces are just locked in agony. Brawn here. And I had G1 Brawn. He's around somewhere. I don't know if I'm going to dig him out for this particular video, but I did have G1 Brawn, the little mini car. He wasn't too big. Ratchet, I don't think I had as a kid, but again, look at that face, just locked into it, locked into the pain. That's incredible. But yeah, they're solid figures. They're pretty cool looking, and maybe I will ultimately build a scene with all of them in their final moments. You do get some guns so they could kind of defend themselves. I won't match them up just yet, but I'll take some pictures with it all said and done. Yeah, anyway, there's Brawn and Ratchet in their little scene. And like I say, we'll do some shots with them in a minute with all their accessories put in place. But let's move on to Ironhide and Prowl real quick. And so here we have Ironhide and Prowl, again on their Studio Series little backdrop here with the gaping hole, presumably where the Decepticons burst in and started wreaking mayhem and murdering everyone. And again, really cool figures, locked in these terrible faces. With their wounds. And once again, stand up there, big guy. Let's see. Accessories wrapped in tissue that we'll go through in a minute. But ultimately, I just have to say that it is just, one, hilarious that this significant devastation that all of us felt as kids is now commemorated in these toys. And I mean, it really was a thing. I joke, but we were 2 years into Transformers, I think. They were our Saturday morning cartoon. We would sit and watch these, eat our cereal, and then see commercials for more toys and things, and just, they're our imagination. They were our friends, these toys. We had such a good time with them. And Hasbro clearly just wanted to sell new toys. So rather than just bring on more characters, I mean, I suppose the cynical option was to just kill off a handful of them and, you know, replace them with new guys, Cup and, you know, I don't know, Rodimus Prime and folks like that. But there was room for everybody, right? Regardless, that's sort of the way they chose to go with it. And it was, I gotta say, in the era of metal, it was pretty metal. I think you had that, NRG song playing during this scene, which was just a banger still today, an absolute classic. And if you can listen to it without reliving this scene in your head too much, it's just a great jam. And the whole movie, the soundtrack was insane. If you were a metalhead, it just immediately came at you and was just hardcore and really not at all kind of what we were going to expect from an 80s movie. And I just remember, like I said, the experience with it was hearing from my friends who rode over on their bikes and started telling me all about it. And it just blew my mind. But I don't think I ever saw it in the theater. I think I waited and rented it and then was just like, holy crap, right? Yeah, it was pretty devastating at the time. But it was one of the many, many things we went through in the 80s as Gen X kids that sort of made us who we are today. Love us or hate us. We experienced this sort of, they didn't sugarcoat things. Sure, no G.I. Joes ever died. They could fall out of planes and land and be just fine. And I don't think any He-Man characters really died back in the day. But Transformers, they didn't mess around. They hit us hard. This was our Iron Man moment. This was our, Black Widow moment. This was something we just had to deal with as kids. Even in the Holy Trilogy of Star Wars, they didn't mess around like that too much with us. Empire was devastating, but, we got our folks back and we had Return of the Jedi and, we had happy endings. But Transformers didn't mess around. And so, got to give them credit for that. So, of course, we can't close out this video without checking out their alt modes. I have our fallen comrades here in front of this bizarre mishmash of random, current, and fairly recent Transformers in the background, all of them sort of mourning their passing. Here we have Ratchet, Ironhide, Brawn, and Prowl. Brawn is the only one, as you can see, that actually hides all of his damage in his alt mode, which is actually kind of nice. And by the way, as I mentioned, I do have G1 Brawn, and here he is. This is the Studio Series Brawn, and here is G1 in all his glory. He's pretty cool, right? I love this guy. I had this guy as a kid. He's awesome. Love Brawn. So let's put that one down. Put Brawn over here. As for the others, they all show some damage in their alt mode. Prowl has the little disturbance right here. And like I said, when I looked into this, I realized that Prowl is, I believe, his Earthrise version, right? Which is apparently really hard to come by. So for a lot of folks who really want this build of Prowl, this is the cheapest way to get him, even though you've got the damage. Because if you want to get the Earthrise Prowl, he's pretty expensive right now. And Ironhide and Ratchet, of course, are actually the exact same mold. They transform the same way. this gun storage is actually really cool. It actually becomes exhaust pipes. This is one of the coolest ways I've seen a toy use the gun storage. I actually like that quite a bit. So that's where you can store his guns. There they are. Their alt modes are pretty cool, but it is unfortunate that they have the damage here permanently in the windshields. Like they smashed a few birds on a road trip or something. But regardless, pretty solid. The transformations are okay, like most people. I went online and found, what is Ermgo, I think. Watched his video, tried my best to do the transformation, but at the end I was doing the just squish everything into place sort of thing. But ultimately, it works okay. If you take your time and do all the steps properly, you'll be fine. Anyway, these are the alt modes. They are pretty cool. At some point, I'll transform them back and line them up with these guys on this row of random modern Transformers. Some of them. By the way, Reactivate Prime. How cool is he? I love this guy. The game's never coming out, but the Prime is probably one of my favorites. Got that rocking the 8-pack here, the giant delts. He looks amazing. Anyway, that's possibly for another video, but there they go. There are the alt modes. But I thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.